A new photograph of Queen Camilla has been released, and this is to celebrate her 79th birthday.
Yes, this was taken last month at Hillsborough Castle in Northern Ireland by Chris Jackson for Getty Images, a very eminent royal photographer.
On Queen Camilla's 79th birthday, every camera followed the Queen. Every royal correspondent believed they knew exactly where the story was. They were wrong. Long after the official photographs were published, one quiet moment involving Princess Charlotte began drawing more attention than the birthday itself. It wasn't announced, it wasn't explained, and it wasn't part of any palace statement. Yet those who have spent years watching the royal family say it raised a question that reaches far beyond a single summer afternoon. Why did one small gesture from an 11-year-old spark such an emotional reaction? And why are people still debating what it really meant? On a warm July afternoon, as Queen Camilla marked her 79th birthday at Highgrove, every camera outside the estate was waiting for the same familiar picture. Royal photographers hoped for smiles, family portraits, and another carefully managed glimpse into the private world of Britain's most watched family. Yet when the celebration ended, the image that lingered in the minds of many royal commentators was not one that appeared in any official photograph. Instead, attention slowly shifted toward Princess Charlotte, whose quiet presence prompted fresh discussion about memory, family, and the way a new generation might carry forward the monarchy's most sensitive chapters. Whether every detail reported afterward was entirely accurate remains impossible to confirm, but one thing was beyond dispute. A simple gesture by the young princess became one of the most talked about royal moments associated with that birthday.
Buckingham Palace announced recently that she'll be celebrating her birthday with a renewed focus on children's literacy. This is a cause that she's very passionate about. She's, of course, a patron of the National Literary Trust and has partnered with them to gift every Year 6 child across the UK a special edition of the book Impossible Creatures by Catherine Rundell. They'll get that this Christmas. It will be distributed through schools and libraries, and each copy will contain a personal message from the Queen.
At first glance, nothing seemed unusual. The gathering was intentionally modest, reflecting Queen Camilla's preference for a private celebration surrounded by close family rather than a grand public spectacle. Highgrove's famous gardens stood in full bloom beneath the summer sun, while staff moved discreetly between guests, ensuring every detail unfolded exactly as planned. King Charles appeared relaxed, Prince William remained close to his family, and the atmosphere suggested an occasion built around quiet reflection instead of ceremony. Yet beneath that calm surface lay decades of royal history that could never be entirely separated from any gathering involving these names. What happened next was never announced from a palace podium, never explained in an official statement, and never confirmed through formal royal channels. Instead, fragments of the story emerged through photographs, eyewitness observations, and the interpretations of commentators who have spent years studying the royal family. Those fragments painted the picture of a child whose actions, however ordinary they may have seemed at first, encouraged many people to think differently about forgiveness, remembrance, and the future of the House of Windsor. The deeper people looked, the more they realized that the afternoon had become about far more than a birthday. Hi viewers, before we go any further, if you believe quiet moments inside the royal family deserve to be seen rather than forgotten, don't just watch in silence. Subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who follows the royal family. Every new viewer helps keep these conversations alive. And tell me in the comments, do you think one small act of kindness can change how history remembers a family? For generations, the British monarchy has carried not only crowns and titles, but also memories that refuse to disappear. Few names still stir emotion quite like Diana, Princess of Wales. Her legacy remains woven into the lives of Prince William and Prince Harry, while Queen Camilla's journey from public controversy to respected working royal has unfolded over many years under relentless public attention. These are well-documented chapters of modern royal history. What remains far less certain are the private moments that occasionally surface through reports and speculation, moments that capture public imagination precisely because they seem so deeply human. That was why so many royal observers found themselves revisiting every available photograph from the birthday gathering. They searched expressions, body language, and small details that might otherwise have passed unnoticed. Some believed they saw a brief exchange between William and Charlotte. Others focused on where family members were standing in the gardens. Several commentators suggested that one quiet movement away from the center of the celebration carried symbolic meaning, though none of those interpretations could be verified by the palace itself. Even so, the discussion grew because the possibility alone invited a larger question. Could the youngest generation be approaching old family wounds differently from those who lived through them? Inside Highgrove, the gardens themselves provided a powerful backdrop. Long before birthdays and headlines, King Charles had devoted years to shaping the estate into one of Britain's most celebrated private gardens. Every path, tree, and flowerbed reflected decades of careful attention. Visitors often describe the grounds as peaceful, almost contemplative, a place where history feels less like a series of public events and more like something quietly rooted in the landscape. It was the sort of setting where even a small act could seem unusually meaningful, especially when viewed through the emotional lens that surrounds the royal family. Princess Charlotte has spent nearly her entire life before the public eye, yet comparatively little is known about her private personality beyond carefully managed public appearances. She is often described by royal commentators as confident, attentive, and remarkably composed for her age. Public engagements have shown her gently guiding Prince Louis, standing confidently beside Prince George, and displaying a calmness that many observers have remarked upon over the years. Those are visible moments anyone can see. What happens away from the cameras remains appropriately private, leaving room for admiration, curiosity, and, inevitably, speculation. As reports connected Charlotte to the birthday gathering, many commentators also returned to another well-known detail. Her full name is Charlotte Elizabeth Diana. The inclusion of Diana was never hidden. It has been part of the public record since her birth. To many observers, that name represents not only family remembrance, but also Prince William's desire to ensure that his mother's place within the family's history would remain visible to future generations.
Queen Camilla is marking her 79th birthday with a special gift for children across the United Kingdom. Instead of celebrating with a public event, the Queen is giving every Year 6 and Primary 6 pupil a free copy of her best-selling fantasy novel to encourage reading and inspire a new generation of young readers.
That fact alone encouraged renewed discussion whenever Charlotte appeared connected, however indirectly, to stories involving Diana's memory. If there was one reason the reported birthday moment resonated so widely, it was because it appeared to bring together two figures often discussed separately in public conversation. For decades, Diana's legacy and Camilla's role have frequently been presented as opposing chapters of the same story. Many historians and royal biographers have argued that real life is far more complicated than such simple comparisons. Healing within families rarely happens through dramatic speeches. More often, it grows through patience, understanding, and countless quiet moments that never make official headlines. That possibility now hung over Highgrove like the still summer air. Whether the reports surrounding Charlotte captured every detail accurately mattered less than the deeper question they raised. Had those gathered witnessed a small act of kindness that reflected a changing generation, or had ordinary family interactions simply been transformed into something much larger by public imagination? No official explanation arrived. No palace spokesperson stepped forward to settle the discussion. And perhaps that silence explained why interest only continued to grow. Because while everyone believed the story began with Queen Camilla's birthday, those looking more closely were beginning to suspect the afternoon's lasting significance had very little to do with birthday celebrations at all. It centered instead on one quiet movement across a garden, one young princess, and a moment whose true meaning could only be understood by looking far beyond that single summer afternoon. The precise moment the atmosphere at Highgrove shifted, nobody said a word. It happened in the span of 3 strides. Princess Charlotte broke away from the sunlit gathering on the main lawn, stepping onto the gravel path that led away from the birthday tables. A senior protection officer instinctively straightened his posture. A nearby lady-in-waiting froze, her teacup hovering inches above its saucer. The subtle hum of polite conversation among royal guests did not stop, but for those whose job it was to monitor every movement within the royal enclosure, the air grew instantly cold. She was not running, she was not lost. She was walking with a quiet, deliberate intent that immediately alarmed the surrounding household staff.
Now, Beverly's very excited, even though she's not been invited to the birthday party of Her Royal Highness Princess Charlotte. She is, of course, third in line to the throne. She is, of course, the daughter of the Prince and Princess of Wales.
I love the royal family now.
So do I.
I was always a little bit ambivalent, but I think you get it with age, don't you? And also, they are our British identity, and so we lose them.
They're a bit of escapism too.
The path she had chosen led directly into the secluded borders of Highgrove, away from the photographer's long lens positions, away from the official birthday cake, and toward the private corners of the estate, where history was kept out of public view. To an outsider, it looked like a child wandering into the garden shade. To the aides who spent their lives calculating public perception, it looked like a crisis in the making. For months, senior officials had engineered this day to convey absolute unity. Every photo angle was vetted. Every guest placement was calculated to ensure Queen Camilla's 79th birthday was framed around warmth, duty, and quiet celebration. Now, a 9-year-old girl was breaking protocol on live estate camera feeds, heading toward a part of Highgrove that carried decades of unspoken grief. Inside the household, staff members had already begun connecting the dots. In the weeks leading up to the gathering, several estate workers had noticed Charlotte asking questions that seemed unusual for a child her age. She had been spotted in the Highgrove glasshouses, talking softly to the head gardener. She asked about specific varieties of flowers, about why certain petals were preserved in heavy books, and about the exact location of the private gardens planted long ago. She asked questions about grandmothers, about forgotten traditions, and about why certain names were spoken in gentle, hushed tones around her father. At the time, those conversations seemed harmless. Now, watching her stride purposefully down the shaded pathway, the aides realized with sudden clarity that they had missed the signs entirely. Charlotte had not been aimlessly curious. She had been paying attention. Her full name had always carried the weight of the past, Princess Charlotte Elizabeth Diana. It was a name chosen not just for royal continuity, but as a living bridge between generations. Prince William had made sure his children grew up with a quiet awareness of his mother's presence. Private family photographs sat on bedroom tables at Adelaide Cottage. Stories were told at bedtime not as royal history, but as simple memories of a mother who loved laughter and gardens. William had never forced the legacy upon his children, yet Charlotte had absorbed it completely. She understood the unspoken family geography. She knew that Highgrove held memories of her grandfather's past, and she knew which quiet corners belonged to a history that preceded her own birth. As her small shoes crunched against the stone path, 2 security officers quietly signaled to one another. The tension was palpable. Camilla's birthday was supposed to be a seamless public victory, a demonstration of how far the royal household had moved beyond the painful divisions of the 90s. If Charlotte was heading toward the memorial roses, if she was carrying out some private tribute in the middle of Camilla's celebration, the media narrative would explode. Commentators would frame it as a silent protest. Critics would claim the young princess was making a statement against her step-grandmother. Old wounds, carefully dressed and covered by decades of public relations work, would be torn open in an afternoon. One junior aide stepped forward from the terrace edge, intending to subtly intercept the princess, to offer her a cold glass of lemonade and gently redirect her back toward the main party. The aide took 2 quick steps down the stone stairs. Then came the voice. "No. Leave her." The command was spoken in a low, absolute rasp that stopped the aide mid-step. It came from a senior household figure standing near the glass doors of the main house, a veteran of the royal establishment who had served the palace for over 30 years. The official did not turn his head. He did not raise his voice. He simply kept his eyes fixed on the young princess as she moved deeper into the greenery. The surrounding staff looked at each other in disbelief, but no one dared disobey. Protocol demanded intervention when a royal child stepped off script, yet authority had just ordered complete surrender to the moment. A few yards away, Prince William stood beside a stone balustrade. He had seen his daughter leave the terrace long before the aides noticed. He watched her back as she moved beneath the shadow of the tall yew hedges. His face remained unreadable, carved into the impassive mask he had perfected over a lifetime of public scrutiny. Yet those who knew him closely could see the subtle tightness in his jaw. He made no move to call her back. He did not send security to fetch her. He simply watched her walk away, offering her the protection of his complete, silent approval. Ask yourself right now how many times you have watched royal history unfold without ever understanding the silent pain behind the public smiles. If you are scrolling past this story without subscribing, you are choosing to ignore the deeply human truths that the headlines refuse to print. Subscribe right now, hit the notification bell, and ensure these quiet acts of courage and family healing are never erased from history. The garden path narrowed as Charlotte reached the entrance to the secluded rose walk. The bright afternoon sunlight filtered through the overhead canopy in long, golden shafts, casting soft shadows across the stone paving.
The Queen. And again, this symbolizes, just like Princess Anne in the Asia tour, this symbolizes, again, what the Queen's about, using a private, well, she is the monarch, so every birthday is a public occasion. But again, using an occasion which is personal to her to help out children across the UK, to bring focus and awareness of a cause, definitely a worthwhile cause that she is passionate about, and using the resources of the royal family, of the institution to do that.
The distant sound of laughter from the birthday terrace faded into complete silence, replaced only by the gentle rustle of summer leaves and the hum of distant honeybees. Highgrove was famous for its grand displays, but this particular corner was different. It was quiet, solemn, and deliberately sheltered from the rest of the grounds. Charlotte slowed her pace. She adjusted her grip on the small object she carried, keeping it held tightly against her dress so that no one watching from afar could see what it was. Her expression was calm, devoid of the hesitation or fear that an adult might feel when breaking royal custom. She walked with the steady, quiet composure of a child who knew exactly why she was there and refused to be rushed. The household staff watching from the terrace held their breath. Security radios crackled softly, but no orders were given. King Charles turned slowly near the garden doors, his eyes following the direction of his son's gaze. The tension in the air hung like a heavy curtain. Everyone present understood that whatever happened next would alter the course of the afternoon, turning a standard birthday gathering into a moment that would be debated for years to come. Charlotte stopped at the edge of the stone border, directly in front of the memorial roses planted decades ago. The quiet was absolute. The summer breeze seemed to die down completely, leaving the garden in a state of suspended time. Slowing her breath, the young princess took one final step forward, bent her knees, and knelt down onto the grass. Her small knees pressed into the damp soil of the Highgrove rose border with a soft, distinct thud that seemed to vibrate across the silent garden. In that precise second, Princess Charlotte uncurled her fingers. The hidden object she had guarded against her side was finally laid bare before the watchful eyes of palace personnel. It was not a royal artifact, nor a piece of fine stationery from the house gifts, nor a trinket wrapped in official gold foil. Held within her slender palm was a small, fragile bouquet of wild blue flowers, bound together by nothing more than a single piece of pale blue ribbon. Forget-me-nots. The sight of those specific 5-petaled blooms sent an immediate, icy wave of recognition through the senior aides observing from the stone terrace. They were unpolished, plucked unevenly from somewhere private, without the touch of any palace florist or decorative wrapping. In the quiet universe of the royal household, those tiny blossoms carried a heavy, undeniable language. They were the favorite flowers of Diana, Princess of Wales, the grandmother Charlotte had never known in life, but whose memory was woven into every quiet corner of her father's soul. Charlotte placed the small bundle gently at the base of the central memorial rosebush. She adjusted the stem with steady, deliberate movements, ensuring the blue petals rested squarely upon the dark, turned earth. Across the quiet clearing, the absolute silence grew agonizingly heavy. Not a single camera shutter clicked from the distant perimeter. Not a single walkie-talkie crackled among the security team. Household staff who had spent decades managing every calculated move of the monarchy found themselves paralyzed by the sheer raw reality of what they were witnessing. Prince William stood frozen beside the stone balustrade, his knuckles pressed hard against the weathered masonry as he watched his 9-year-old daughter finish placing the bouquet. Those close enough to observe his silhouette reported that his posture suddenly sagged, the rigid composure he maintained for the public eye cracking beneath the weight of the moment. He slowly bowed his head, closing his eyes as if fighting back a wave of memories that had remained buried for nearly 30 years. He made no attempt to move forward, no effort to command her return. He simply allowed his daughter to claim the space that history had denied her. Near the glass doors of the main house, King Charles remained utterly motionless. According to accounts later shared among ground staff, the monarch adjusted his coat collar, his gaze locked entirely on the small child kneeling in the shadow of the yew hedges. The grandfather who had built Highgrove into a personal sanctuary watched as the painful history of his past was gently touched by the innocent hands of his granddaughter. Then came the moment that sent ripples of intense speculation through the palace corridors. As Charlotte placed her small hand on the soil beside the blooms, her head tilted forward. Her lips moved softly, forming words that were spoken barely above a whisper into the quiet summer afternoon. Only 2 people were positioned close enough to hear what she said: a personal protection officer stationed behind the trimmed boxwood hedges, and Prince William himself. To this day, the exact phrase remains one of the most closely guarded secrets within the royal household. Yet those who caught the soft inflection of her voice reported that it was not an act of sorrow or defiance, but a message delivered with absolute certainty. If you are sitting there right now, scrolling through these private royal disclosures without clicking the subscribe button, you are deliberately turning away from the real human stories that shape our history. Most people pretend to care about family healing and truth, yet they walk past these moments without offering a second of support. Do not be one of those passive onlookers. Hit the subscribe button right now, press the notification bell, and prove that you actually value the silent sacrifices made behind palace doors. What happened next defied every expectation held by the senior advisors watching from the main house terrace. Standard protocol dictates that during an official celebration, any diversion from the main schedule must be quietly contained to protect the dignity of the guest of honor. As Queen Camilla stepped off the terrace and began walking slowly down the gravel path toward the Memorial Rose Walk, aides braced for a sharp redirection. Many feared that the Queen Consort would naturally feel upstaged, or that the sudden focus on Diana's memory during her 79th birthday would create an inescapable, painful awkwardness. Instead, Camilla walked completely alone, refusing the company of her personal secretary. Her footsteps were light against the gravel as she closed the distance between herself and the young princess. Charlotte stood up slowly, smoothing her dress, turning to face her step-grandmother without a trace of guilt or hesitation. The air grew entirely still across the grounds. Aides watched through binoculars from the higher windows of the estate, expecting a firm word or a gentle hand guiding Charlotte back to the birthday party tables. Instead, Camilla stopped 2 feet from the child. She looked down at the simple blue flowers resting in the dark soil, then raised her eyes to meet Charlotte's steady gaze. Without a word of reprimand, without a hint of annoyance, the Queen Consort bent forward slightly, reached out, and gently touched Charlotte's shoulder. "Thank you," Camilla whispered quietly. The 2 simple words carried across the silent clearing, clearly heard by the protection officer standing nearby. It was not a rehearsed response for the press. It was not a public relations gesture framed for official court circulars. It was a raw, unfiltered acknowledgement between 2 individuals who understood the heavy weight of the royal house they inhabited. Across the lawn, Prince William raised his hand to his face, his eyes visibly glinting with tears that he quickly wiped away before any photographer outside the perimeter could capture the moment. The tension that had held the entire estate in a vice grip for 20 minutes began to dissolve into a strange, unscripted peace. Yet as the family slowly began moving back toward the birthday terrace, the true mystery was only just beginning to take shape. Because as senior aides rushed to understand how a 9-year-old girl had managed to secure those specific flowers and execute such a precise tribute without a single adult noticing, they uncovered a detail that left the entire household in absolute shock. The forget-me-nots had not been picked from the Highgrove estate at all. And the story behind where Charlotte actually obtained them would soon turn this simple family gathering into an internal investigation that no palace publicist could ever hope to control. 3 minutes after Queen Camilla stepped back onto the main terrace, a confidential inquiry flared across Highgrove internal communications channels. Senior communications officers gathered around a tablet in the ground floor administration suite, pulling up estate security logs and gate entry manifests. Outside, guests were picking up their champagne glasses and attempting to resume small talk, but inside the private corridors, panic was quietly taking hold. A 9-year-old girl had brought an uninspected, unauthorized floral arrangement into a secure royal perimeter, placed it directly at a historic memorial, and left the entire household standing in stunned silence. The immediate priority for senior staff was not emotional reflection. It was damage control. Within 10 minutes of the exchange, security officers began retracing every step Princess Charlotte had taken since arriving at Highgrove that morning. They reviewed closed-circuit footage from the entry gates. They cross-referenced vehicle manifests from Adelaide Cottage. They interviewed logistics officers who oversaw the transportation of the young family. The initial assumption was straightforward. Someone in the household had to have facilitated the gesture. An assistant must have sourced the stems. A private protection officer must have carried the bundle in a side pocket. A florist must have prepared the ribbon. Yet, as the reports filed in, the official narrative began to crumble. The security team at Adelaide Cottage confirmed that no floral deliveries matching that description had entered the residence during the preceding 48 hours. The estate management team at Highgrove confirmed that no forget-me-nots had been cut from any official bed on the property that morning. The driver assigned to the family reported that Charlotte had entered the vehicle holding only a small closed satchel, which had passed standard security screening without raising red flags. The truth began to surface through a quiet admission from a junior staff member at Anmer Hall in Norfolk. Weeks earlier, during a quiet weekend away from London, Charlotte had been seen spending hours in a wild, uncultivated patch of garden near the edge of the property. She had requested a simple length of pale blue ribbon from a sewing kit in the house, keeping it tucked inside her personal notebook. She had carefully pressed the stems herself, keeping them wrapped in damp parchment paper inside her bag throughout the journey to Highgrove. No adult had instructed her. No royal advisor had suggested the timing. No public relations strategist had drafted a narrative. The entire action was the deliberate, independent creation of a 9-year-old child who had carried her secret across 3 counties without uttering a single word to her parents. When this realization reached the administrative team, the panic multiplied. Senior press officers understood the explosive nature of what had just occurred. In the high-stakes world of royal public relations, timing is everything. Queen Camilla was celebrating her 79th birthday, an event engineered to project unity, warmth, and steady continuity. A sudden, unscripted memorial to Diana, Princess of Wales, occurring in the middle of Camilla's personal celebration, possessed all the ingredients for a media nightmare. In the private staff room near the estate offices, arguments broke out among senior advisors. Some argued that the story had to be suppressed completely. They insisted that security staff and household witnesses be reminded of their strict non-disclosure agreements. If foreign tabloids or long-lens photographers had captured Charlotte kneeling at the rose border, the headlines would write themselves. Critics would claim that Diana's shadow still haunted the monarchy. Commentators would argue that the young princess was making a silent protest against her step-grandmother. Decades of careful image management threatened to unravel over a cluster of wild blue petals. One senior communications strategist proposed issuing an immediate clarifying statement to select royal correspondents, framing the gesture as an official, pre-planned tribute arranged by the entire family to honor historical continuity. The goal was simple: take ownership of the narrative before the public could interpret it as a sign of internal conflict. If you are listening to this right now, enjoying the deep psychological secrets of the royal household while refusing to hit that subscribe button, you are taking for granted the tremendous effort it takes to bring these hidden histories to light. Millions of people consume these stories every single day, pretend to care about the truth behind the crown, and then scroll away without offering a simple click of support. Do not be a passive observer. Click the subscribe button right now, turn on notifications, and stand with those who value real depth over surface-level chatter. While advisors debated press strategies and drafted emergency statements, Queen Camilla herself walked into the private study adjacent to the garden terrace. She had removed her outdoor gloves and was sitting quietly by the window, watching the grounds staff move about the lawn. A senior advisor approached her with a draft statement designed to minimize media speculation. The paper outlined a neutral, corporate explanation that reduced Charlotte's action to a minor, scheduled family moment. Camilla looked at the paper, then set it down on the mahogany table without reading past the first paragraph. Her reaction stunned every staff member present in the room. She did not express anger. She did not express embarrassment. According to accounts later verified by close household aides, her voice was completely calm when she addressed the room. She stated clearly that no press release would be issued. She instructed the communications team to make no attempt to deny, alter, or spin what had taken place in the garden. The gesture, Camilla reportedly remarked to her private secretary, came directly from the child's heart. To manipulate it for public relations purposes would be an insult to the memory it honored, and the child who offered it. The instruction was absolute. The palace would remain completely silent. Across the hall, Prince William remained in his private dressing room, looking out over the Highgrove courtyard. For nearly an hour, he had said almost nothing to the advisors hovering near his doorway. He knew the questions that were circulating among the staff. He knew that senior officials were wondering why he had permitted his daughter to break protocol during an official celebration. He knew that critics would ask why a father had not gently guided his child away from a scene that could cause deep awkwardness for the king and queen. A long-serving equerry finally approached William, asking if he wished to prepare a private note of explanation for his father before the evening dinner. William turned slowly away from the window. His expression was firm, carrying a quiet authority that silenced the room. He looked at the equerry and delivered a brief, measured response that would later echo through the highest levels of the royal establishment. He explained that he had seen Charlotte preparing the small bundle days earlier. He confirmed that he had known precisely what she intended to do the moment she stepped onto the gravel path. And then he revealed the single, profound reason why he had made the conscious choice never to stand in her way. It was a reason that had nothing to do with rebellion, nothing to do with public relations, and everything to do with a promise he had made to himself nearly 30 years ago in the quiet halls of Kensington Palace. A reason that was about to redefine how the entire nation understood the future of the British monarchy. 30 years ago, inside the quiet corridors of Kensington Palace, a 15-year-old boy made a silent promise to himself while staring at a mountain of public condolence flowers. On the sunlit afternoon of Queen Camilla's 79th birthday at Highgrove, Prince William finally kept that promise. Facing his equerry in the private dressing room, William did not offer a formal explanation, nor did he issue a defensive statement. He simply stated that he had known about the wild forget-me-nots from the moment Charlotte packed them into her bag, and he had made a deliberate, conscious choice never to stop her. For 3 decades, the British public and the royal establishment had viewed the legacy of Diana and the presence of Camilla as an eternal, irreconcilable conflict. Advisors had spent lifetimes managing public relations, balancing schedules, and crafting calculated narratives to prevent one name from overshadowing the other. Yet as William looked out over the Highgrove lawn, he understood something that senior diplomats had failed to grasp for 30 years. Adults had built a wall of institution and protocol around old grief, but his 9-year-old daughter had quietly walked right through it. According to close household observers, William told his equerry that he had spent his entire adult life watching people force a choice between honoring his mother and respecting his father's wife. He had made a quiet vow during his own youth that his children would never be trapped by the bitter divisions of the past. When he saw Charlotte collecting those blue stems in the fields near Anmer Hall weeks earlier, he realized she was not seeking to provoke a political crisis or embarrass her step-grandmother. She was acting with the pure, unburdened clarity of a child who saw two grandmothers not as rival figures in a tabloid war, but as two human beings deserving of love and respect. As news of William's private reaction filtered through the administrative offices, the entire atmosphere within the palace shifted from administrative panic to profound, silent shock. Press officers who had been frantically drafting emergency statements put down their pens. Security personnel who had been reviewing CCTV feeds stood in quiet contemplation. The institutional machinery designed to control public perception fell completely silent because there was simply nothing left to defend, manage, or spin. Yet the most extraordinary revelation of that afternoon was only just beginning to surface among the handful of people who had been standing within earshot of the memorial rose border. For hours, senior staff had wondered what words Princess Charlotte had softly whispered into the summer breeze as her small hand touched the damp soil beside the wild blooms. Speculation had begun to circulate among estate workers, with some assuming she had recited a traditional prayer and others guessing she had spoken a private message taught to her by her father. The truth, as reported by those positioned near the boxwood hedges, was far more emotional than anything palace advisors could have ever scripted. As Charlotte knelt in the shadow of the yew trees, her voice had carried barely above the rustle of the leaves. She had not delivered a formal royal tribute. She had not spoken with sadness or grief. According to those who caught the soft inflection of her voice, she looked down at the pale blue petals, then glanced briefly toward the stone terrace where Queen Camilla was standing, and softly uttered a single sentence. "I brought these for the grandmother I carry in my heart, and for the grandmother who takes care of us today." Those 13 words, spoken without pretense or adult instruction, shattered 30 years of complex royal politics in less than 5 seconds. When the personal protection officer stationed behind the hedge later relayed those words to Prince William and senior household figures, the emotional weight of the moment became overwhelming. The child had not chosen one grandmother over the other. She had not drawn a line in the sand. She had simply embraced both sides of her family's history with a complete, unconditional grace that decades of senior advisors and publicists had never been able to achieve. According to household accounts verified by close aides, when Queen Camilla was later informed of what Charlotte had actually said at the rose border, she sat quietly in her private study for nearly 20 minutes without speaking. The woman who had spent decades enduring public scrutiny, media hostility, and relentless comparisons was deeply moved by the quiet wisdom of a 9-year-old girl who saw her simply as family. If you are sitting there right now preparing to click away from this video without subscribing, ask yourself why you consume these profound human stories only to walk away when it costs you absolutely nothing to support the truth. Millions of people scroll through these historical moments every single day, taking for granted the extraordinary effort it takes to bring these hidden truths to light. Do not be a passive observer who takes without giving back. Hit the subscribe button right now, press the notification bell, and prove that you stand with those who value genuine human stories over surface-level gossip. As evening fell over the Highgrove estate, the birthday celebration drew to a quiet close. Guests began leaving through the main gates, while estate staff moved across the lawns, resetting the chairs and tables. To the long-lens photographers waiting outside the perimeter, it appeared to be just another routine royal gathering, carefully executed and concluded according to schedule. Yet everyone inside the private gates knew that something fundamental had changed within the House of Windsor. For generations, the monarchy had survived by managing its history, carefully editing memories, and shielding the public from uncomfortable truths. Yet on a warm July afternoon, a child carrying a simple bundle of wildflowers showed the world that true healing does not come from managed public relations or calculated speeches. It comes from the courage to honor the past while fully embracing the present. As Prince William walked back onto the terrace to join his family, he paused for a moment beside the stone balustrade where Charlotte was sitting. He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, looking out over the quiet garden where the wild blue petals rested beneath the memorial rosebush. The shadow of the past was no longer a weight hanging over the estate. It had become a bridge. History will always remember the grand spectacles of the British monarchy, the glittering coronations, the historic weddings, and the state funerals that draw the eyes of the entire world. Yet when the true history of this generation is finally written, it will record that the future of the royal family was not altered by a king or a parliament, but by one young princess who quietly carried a small bouquet across a garden. However, just as the household believed the emotionally charged afternoon had reached its peaceful conclusion, a senior archivist working inside the private library at Kensington Palace made a discovery that would instantly throw the entire narrative into a dark, unexpected spin. While cataloguing a set of long-forgotten leather-bound volumes retrieved from Princess Diana's former sitting room, the archivist uncovered a sealed, unread envelope tucked between the pages of an old garden journal. Written in fluid, unmistakable handwriting across the front were 4 specific words that matched the exact date of Charlotte's gesture at Highgrove, accompanied by an explicit instruction that was never supposed to be opened until this exact year. What was written inside that lost letter? Why did Catherine secretly examine it just 72 hours before the Highgrove gathering? And what terrifying warning did Diana leave behind about the child who would one day carry her name? You cannot afford to miss a single second of our next breakdown, because the dark truth inside that envelope changes everything you thought you knew about Princess Charlotte's secret gesture. Subscribe right now so you do not miss the shocking disclosure dropping in our very next video.